As we all know, our country and our Navy is not immune from the rapid changes in threats and technologies reshaping the battlefield, battle space. There's no question that our Navy must move decisively to integrate unmanned systems into the fight. The time is now, and it appears the Navy is late to the game already. We've all been watching what's going on in Ukraine, and it seems like everybody should be moving faster. But we're going to hear about where we are today. Unfortunately, we have enemies. The governments of Iran, Communist China, Russia, Cuba, North Korea, they have chosen to be our enemies. I know with Iran, there's different views on how well we've all worked together. So we all hope for a positive future, though. We've learned from the war in Ukraine that unmanned autonomous systems need real integration to our military and our Navy. The history of warfare teaches us that whenever we don't lead, we eventually suffer. The United States has to be a leader. We must lead in the unmanned autonomous battle space during conflict. There needs to be a real sense of urgency within the Navy. My main concern is there are some admirals that are opposing innovation, and the idea is necessary to make real changes and bring new, real, lethal capabilities to the Navy. Our country and the sailors and Marines who defend it deserve absolutely the best. I think your son's serving, right? Our enemies are moving fast. Unmanned surface vehicles can be force multipliers that extend our reach, reduce risks to American sailors and Marines, which is very important to all of us, and give us the edge we need against any threat posed by our enemies. From one-way attack missions to logistics, air defense, reconnaissance, mine countermeasures, and more, unmanned surface vessels offer a wide array of capabilities to augment our manned fleet. Yet for too long, our Navy's plans have been non-committal at best. While our other navies have received the message to move fast, it seems like our Navy's lagging approach risks leaving us behind. You take the Replicator initiative, which forced the Navy into a one-time buy of small unmanned surface vessels. Unbelievably, last year the Navy planned to zero out the entire effort, just cut the entire thing. Similarly, the Navy wanted to keep studying medium unmanned surface vessels until considering the start of a real program in 2029. My staff and I have met with numerous companies that build these unmanned systems, and they all tell us the same thing. The Navy needs to have a clear strategy, and they don't know exactly what the Navy needs or wants them to build. That causes a lot of problems. The Navy owes it to our country to have a real solution. Luckily, in Congress, we took it upon ourselves to drag the Navy forward. The One Big Beautiful Bill made the largest single investment in unmanned maritime systems in history, a $5 billion investment, including a $3.6 billion investment specifically for unmanned surface vessels. That's real money and sent a clear signal that America will start growing the fleet. To his credit, when Secretary Phelan took the helm, he immediately recognized the Navy's problem. He saw that unmanned efforts were scattered across too many program offices with no coherence, no urgency, and no path to scale, and no overall strategy. He acted like a businessman fixing a broken organization. He stood up the portfolio acquisition executive for robotic autonomous systems to pull everything together under one roof with the authorities needed to move quickly. Today, we have two key witnesses before us. Ms. Rebecca Glazer, who was tapped to be the first portfolio acquisition executive. I'd like to hear from her, I want to better understand how the Navy plans to buy these vessels going forward, especially with the shift toward an unmanned marketplace. That move has raised serious concerns in industry about whether the Navy is changing direction again. Industry needs a clear, sustained demand signal they can build against, not another pivot to leave shipyards and suppliers hanging. I also want to welcome Rear Admiral Derek Trink, Director of Surface Warfare. Admiral, you own the requirements for what these vessels must do for the fleet and the responsibility to line up the funding to make it happen. I understand the President's budget justification for fiscal year 2027 drops today, so this is good timing. How much money is going to be is planned for small unmanned vessels, for medium? How much for payloads that make these platforms lethal? How much for enabling technologies for rigorous testing, and critically for force generation? We would like to understand the Navy's plan for training, logistics, and maintenance. I know these issues are at the top of your mind. Look forward to your direct answers. I want to thank both the witnesses for being here and invite my friend and ranking member, Senator Kane, to make his opening statement.
Thank you to our chair for calling this hearing today. It's a really important one, and I look forward to working with you again on the Sea Power Subcommittee, particularly as we're in the kind of run-up to the NDAA. And there may well be insights that come from this hearing today that can help us shape the NDAA as we get to it in full committee in June. Thank you to each of you for your service to the country, and thanks for being here today. We are here to talk about a new and different way to potentially change the balance of power through the augmentation of our fleet with uncrewed surface vessels. Now, to those in the room or anybody who may be paying attention to this, we haven't been having a lot of public hearings about this, but we have been digging into it pretty significantly in the committee. Just in the last couple of months, we've had at least 2 hearings in classified on uncrewed systems. And we've also had some discussions with some of the COCOMs about uncrewed systems, but I will say the predominance of those discussions are about aerial systems. And we recently even had a discussion about the protection of naval assets from aerial threats. But when we asked how do we protect naval assets from surface or subsurface threats, the answers were not as fleshed out. And so it's good, Mr. Chair, that we're having this as a public hearing today so we can really dig into the way we look at surface and subsurface vessels as we think about the investments that we're making in the fleet. How do we partner with industry to meet this challenge? We know that the evolution of these systems is advancing very, very quickly, and we have to be prepared to innovate and procure with some speed and flexibility as technologies improve. We want to talk about not only unmanned systems in the defensive mode, how do we protect our assets from unmanned threats? We watch what's happening in the Black Sea, for example, in Ukraine, and we know those threats are very real. We want to talk about the offensive use of these systems and how they may augment what we're doing in ship and sub building. We've had a lot of testimony about the equivalent effort that is, I think, pretty carefully constructed after some missteps, kind of false starts, the Joint Interagency Task Force 401, JIATA 401. That's very focused on the aerial threats. And it was the sort of second organizational iteration of how are we going to focus on aerial threats and get everybody at the table. And at least for my sake, I think that this second iteration of it gives me some confidence. I think we were sort of stumbling about how to get everybody at the table, whether it's, the defense agencies or the FAA or local law enforcement or FBI, how do we get everybody at the table to come up with the right set of strategies to both counter threats and have an offensive capacity. Now we have an organization that I think seems to be working and that I think is engendering some confidence. So we want to now look at the Navy side of the house and figure out what we're doing. I do acknowledge, as the chair did, this is a pretty extraordinary time for the Navy. Commercial vessels from all around the world and our naval vessels and those of our partners have been attacked dozens of times in the past 3 years by Houthis, now by Iran and Iran's proxies. The Navy has put together a pretty amazing